you think is we're more or less destined for it at this point. Let's say it does happen sooner rather than later. Let's say it's a 2023 event. I'm not saying you're predicting that, but let's say that it is. Can you provide some context around what that would look like and feel like?
Well, it would probably be preceded by a crisis in which the value of the dollar, not versus other currencies necessarily, but versus real stuff, goes down at a disorderly rate. In other words, big price spikes in a lot of important commodities, for instance, or some financial assets going way up.
And sorry to interrupt, but would it make like the big price increases that we saw coming, through the pandemic, where we saw lumber go crazy and eggs at the market go crazy and all that stuff? Would it make that look like child's play?
It could be bigger than that, yeah. And that was pretty scary, but it was very temporary. Everything spiked. Central banks continue to tighten, somebody will blow up. And that domino will knock down a bunch of other dominoes until the market psychology completely changes from, blasé, mid-range optimism by the debt or by the dip, like it prevails in a lot of places right now, to blind panic.
In terms of the New York Stock Exchange trading snafu from a couple days ago, Bloomberg has learned that the NYSE, the mayhem there has been traced now to an employee who left a backup system running. That mistake triggered wild market swings involving more than 250 companies. Bloomberg's Danny Berger joins us now with the latest on how the disaster recovery system caused a disaster itself. Danny?
That is really some good irony. Look, this is a fantastic scoop here from Catherine Doherty and the rest of the team in New York. And essentially, there is this system, as you say, it's in Chicago, and it should be shut off and turned back on. For whatever reason, an employee there didn't properly turn it off. So the NYSE main system thinks that trading has just been running. So come 9:30, it just treats it like an extension of the trading day instead of saying, okay, trading is just about to start, we do the morning auction. Therefore, that morning auction simply does not happen. What does that mean? It means that this usually huge upswell of liquidity that happens in that morning auction isn't there. So anyone placing orders during this time is trading into a really illiquid market. It means that even if you just trade, let's say, 500 shares, it can mean that prices swing really wildly, and ultimately the result is you perhaps lost or, even made a lot of money.
Danny, what happens next on this one then? Because, we've seen a number of more than 1,300 trades and some 84 stocks were impacted. Some of that's being cancelled.
It certainly is. And there might be some financial repercussions of this as well for the NYSE. They do set aside $500,000 per month to deal with different issues. Not this one specifically. I think this is one they probably didn't exactly see coming. But yeah, so they'll probably cancel some trades. But for the rest, for folks who have lost money and didn't have their trades canceled, they have filed some complaints. Again, it's not really clear how much money the NYSE...
Today, all I'm going to say is make sure you have your bug-out bags ready to go and your bunkers, if you're privy enough to have one, locked and loaded, because we have some big news to break today, and I can't cram it all into the first minute, so you're going to have to stick with me till the end, all right? Now, we have Russian warships armed with hypersonic nuclear missiles parked just off the east coast of the United States. I repeat, Russian warship armed with hypersonic nuclear missiles, just like Medvedev threatened 2 weeks ago, apparently now is a reality, according to my sources, which I will disavow towards the end of the video. I give full credit where credit is due, and there's a YouTube channel who disseminated this information first, and I plan on giving them full credit for doing so in just a minute. They also talked about how there was a Russian warship that's been just off the Hawaiian coast, 24 miles, in fact, in accordance with international law. You have to be 22 miles away from any nation's coastline if you're a military ship, and that is, in fact, mainstream news. So Russian intelligence is collecting some sort of information or doing some sort of recon mission out there. We also have this data point. Russia is now engaged in a real war with the West, according to the foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov. Up until this point, it's been considered a hybrid war. A hybrid war is called fifth generation warfare. In fifth generation warfare, this is a way for nuclear powers to fight with one another without it going to the strategic level. Because once two nuclear powers engage in a conventional war, a direct war that's not a proxy war with one another, the risk of it escalating to the nuclear level is high. That's when we're talking DEFCON 2, DEFCON 1 stuff. Up until this point, it's been cyber attacks, it's been a culture war, it's been a media war, it's been maybe some attacks on the grid and critical infrastructure, but it's about to get hot. The Russians are now saying their foreign minister, one of the highest people in their government and the second in command, Dmitry Medvedev, or the second arguably of influence in the country, Medvedev, is saying that this is now a real war with the Russians. And War News 24/7, who are very accurate in their predictions, has come out and said that intensive war preparations are taking place in the capital of Russia, as we've talked about for the last few days, setting up all the anti-aircraft batteries on top of Moscow. People have no idea how big this is, and I don't blame you, because if you go outside right now, if you turn on the TV, you are not going to hear about any of this, and that's the scary part, is that a lot of people are going to be late to the party for this one. So if this is a big game of musical chairs, consider this your inside. They're saying that Putin is going to make an extremely important announcement in the next few days. Moscow is expected to officially declare the start of a new patriotic war. Why would any of this be happening, you ask? Well, guess what? The weapons are flowing into Ukraine like crazy right now from all NATO countries. And this is getting to the point where Russia is getting ready to make an ultimatum. Guys, this is big. People think,
it was an Akula project submarine approached the U.S. coast unnoticed. It was possible to establish the whereabouts of the nuclear submarine with up to 160 nuclear warheads on board after the sub started going back to the base. A submarine of the class is capable of destroying most of the territory of the United States of America in minutes. And the report says that they never even knew it was there until it surfaced. Russian nuclear submarines will be able to consistently patrol the waters near the U.S. coast in the event that Russia decides to build a naval base in Cuba.
The United States is upping its efforts to protect its citizens from the impact of any radiological and nuclear emergencies. The US Health Department is purchasing a drug that treats blood cell injuries caused due to acute radiation syndrome in adults and pediatric patients. The drug, called Nplate, is being purchased from the California-based company called Amgen. Nplate treats acute radiation syndrome, which is also known as radiation sickness. It occurs when a person is exposed to a high dose of penetrating radiation. ARS can lead to uncontrolled and life-threatening bleeding. Nplate is also approved for patients with a blood disorder that results in low platelet counts. Repurposing the drugs for acute radiation syndrome helps to sustain them and their availability. Amgen has developed Nplate along with the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, a part of the Health and Human Services Department for Strategic Preparedness and Response. The money for purchases of this drug comes from $290 million of designated funding under the Project BioShield.
Today, the New York City mayor is answering the question that a bunch of people are asking, which is, why are we getting warned about how to stay safe from a nuclear attack right now? Like, what? That's after this new PSA started airing, explaining how to do just that. Keep yourself safe from nukes, with Mayor Eric Adams saying, hey, don't freak out, no need to panic, but be prepared. The odds of a nuclear attack, pretty low. But city officials at the Office of Emergency Management want to make sure you know what to do to stay safe if it ever came to that. Pretty basic stuff. Go inside and stay there. But people are wondering what is up with the timing of this message. Isa Gutierrez explains.
So there's been a nuclear attack. Don't ask me how or why, just know that the big one has hit.
New York City officials releasing a PSA on what to do in case of a nuclear attack. Their instructions: get inside, stay inside, and stay tuned.
PSAs like this seem like a waste until something bad actually happens. And then they are potentially very valuable.
But no need to evacuate just yet. In a statement, the New York City Department of Emergency Management saying that, quote, the likelihood of a nuclear weapon incident occurring in or near New York City is very low.
There's no specific threat. We've received feedback that, not surprisingly, this scenario is something that people don't feel prepared for, and they ask us for advice. So, this was an effort to provide some straightforward advice around a difficult topic.
Mayor Eric Adams adding that the move comes amid rising tensions in Ukraine.
I'm a big believer in better safe than sorry. I take my hat off to OEM. This was right after the attacks in the Ukraine.
Is a nuclear attack something you think about at all? Is that on your mind?
I don't think about it that much just because it seems so far-fetched.
Although the PSA targeted New Yorkers, it's a message some experts think could resonate with the nation overall.
My sense is better education would be helpful. Just knowing some basic things like, again, stay inside.
And no, staying in the car is not an option. You need to get into a building and move away from the windows.
Do you feel prepared for a nuclear attack?
No. Not by a long shot.
I don't know what I would do. Maybe that doesn't sound very intelligent, but I really don't know what I would do.
PSAs like these were common just a few decades ago.
First, you duck, and then you cover.
And they may become common with groups like the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, sounding the alarm. They manage the doomsday clock, designed to warn the world about man-made threats like nuclear war, amongst other issues. Recently, they set the clock for 100 seconds to midnight, saying in part, quote, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has brought this nightmare scenario to life, with Russian President Vladimir Putin threatening to elevate nuclear alert levels, and even first use of nuclear weapons if NATO steps in to help Ukraine. This is what 100 seconds to midnight looks like.
Nuclear attacks.
Please not have one more thing to freak out over. Do we see, please, New York City, do not give us one more thing to stress out about. I know that one of the people that you talked to said, hey, this is not just a message that could resonate with New Yorkers, but people all over the country, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Hallie. And experts are saying that the U.S. as a whole really isn't prepared. And like you heard from those folks I spoke with today, they really don't know what to do in case of one of these emergencies. Columbia University's Center for Nuclear Studies in 2018 said the U.S. and its citizens is not prepared for any type of nuclear disaster and its aftermath. And you look at a lot of the emergency preparedness websites across the country for the different states, and many of them don't have information for this type of situation, telling people what to do or how to prepare. But